Hey, it's Dr. Brian Mowll, the diabetes coach, and welcome back to the Mastering Blood Sugar podcast. I have a new friend with me today, someone that had just a nice conversation with, and I wanted her to come on and share all the knowledge and experience that she's been able to accumulate in the past almost decade. Her name is Kaity Castillo, and Kaity's a recent graduate of having a doctorate as a nurse, and she's been a family nurse practitioner for many years, practicing, helping people with diabetes, blood sugar problems, metabolic health, and a whole host of other things, of course, as well. So, Kaity, welcome to the Mastering Blood Sugar podcast. Great to have you here with me.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, definitely. So I just gave that brief intro, but I'd love to hear from you a little bit more about, your journey through nursing school, becoming a nurse practitioner, family nurse practitioner, getting your doctorate, and then your focus in blood sugar and metabolic health.
Sure. I became a nurse back in 2012, so about 13 years ago. And then in 2018, I graduated with my family nurse practitioner certification. I've been practicing in urgent cares, primary care practices since then. And I really realized over those years that we were just doing a disservice to our patients, the metabolic community in general with type 2 diabetes. So I went back and got my doctorate, and my dissertation was to help type 2 diabetics to control their blood glucose levels. That was really my passion and what I specialized in my doctoral program. And I also now have my own coaching company that I do to help type 2 diabetics lower their blood sugar and lose weight.
Yeah, that's amazing. So when you were in school, way back when you were getting your original nursing degree and then family nurse practitioner, master's, and then even through your doctorate, what's now being taught from a nutrition perspective for people with diabetes? Are you taking nutrition classes, or what's the education look like there?
There's none. There was no nutritional classes that I took the entire time I was in nursing school or practitioner school or my doctorate.
Okay, that's a bit scary, but pretty much what I expected,
Yeah.
unfortunately. So, what about diabetes management? Like, how much diabetes management do you get, and what's that look like? What's the standard diabetes management look like these days?
Yeah, so A1C is elevated. You prescribe metformin or Jardiance first line, and you scale up medication to insulin if needed, and you give them a kind of generic one-size-fits-all diet to follow that may or may not be. I think the ADA is coming around a little bit to a little bit more carb control, but really it's just kind of a universal fix for everybody. So just not a lot of personalization, in my opinion.
Is it like a handout, with some diet recommendations? What's the coordination with dietitians or diabetes educators look like?
Well, in the area that I practice, a lot of my clients are self-pay, or my patients are self-pay in the clinic, so they don't have insurance to go to a dietitian or nutritionist. So that's off the table. So we had just the ADA recommendations. It used to be called 1800 or 1500 ADA diet. I'm sure you remember that a decade ago, and it's evolved. I actually created my own within the clinic that I formulated that was a better fit, I felt. Tell them how to portion controls, how much protein to eat with each meal, things like that, complex carbs versus refined, and I created that in my clinic, and I utilized that.
How much flexibility do you get as a family nurse practitioner when it comes to giving nutritional advice? I mean, I don't want to say allowed, but do you have the flexibility to be able to recommend whatever you want, or do you need to follow sort of ADA guidelines? What's the general guidelines around that?
Well, I think in many clinics in big organizations it is ADA, but I am very blessed to work in a private practice with my doctor, and he pretty much allows me free reign to educate how I want, and if I need longer with the patient, I do schedule that time with them. So I'm very lucky in that aspect that I can do nutritional education the way I see fit, and as long as I'm getting the results and people's A1Cs are coming down and their lipid profiles are improving, their weight's improving, my doctor likes that, and we work together, and he knows that I study more nutrition than he does, so it's really just a group effort in my clinic.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and probably be better if more doctors sort of followed that type of approach, because there's a lot that works, and we'll get into this more, but I don't think there's just one approach that works for everybody. So you've got to be able to kind of work with the client or patient to find what works for them. And works is obviously a loaded term that could mean lowers blood sugar, but it also could mean what are they going to follow? What are they going to be able to do? What are they going to be able to stick with, be consistent with, and enable them to get the best results possible. So is that something you do with your, with your clinic patients? And I know you also have a program where you help people really all over the country online as well. So how do you help people personalize programs for themselves?
Yeah, so it's a 6-month program because I've learned it takes quite a bit of time to get their nutrition down. Some clients come to me and they want to go straight keto. They want to get their blood sugar down the quickest, which can happen very fast. One of my clients started with the average blood sugar of 276. He's now averaging 110s and off medications, or near off. I think he's still on metformin. He went straight keto. He liked it. He felt well with it. We're now in the phase that I think we're going to start trying to transition single ingredient complex carbs back in one at a time and test them with a CGM. So it just depends. Like a lot of my clients, they can go keto, but some, like you said, they can't sustain that. So that's a quick fix. What's our exit strategy? So it gets really personalized and figuring out, well, if they can't do keto, what can they do? Let's work on the beans and the lentils and just carbs from nature into their diet versus refined carbohydrates like breads and pastas that they may have been on. So it's just really personalized, and we have to just continuously go back and forth to see what's going to work for them, and I monitor their CGMs as well. So it's in real time. We know, hey, sweet potatoes might be healthy, but they're just not working for you because you had an 80-point spike with those. So that's how I personalize it, really, with their CGM, and just helping them formulate a plan that they can live the rest of their life with, not 6 months.
You've mentioned keto a couple of times. Is that your starting point? Like, do you feel like that maybe all things equal, if the person, if we take sort of compliance issues off the table for just a second, do you feel like that gives people the best chance to improve their blood sugar quickly?
Yes, I think it reduces insulin levels quickly. I think it reduces your blood sugar quickly and just decreases inflammation in a lot of people, especially in their gut. So if they tolerate it, they're doing well. They don't have any weird cholesterol issues background, then, and their doctor's okay with it. I make everybody get a clearance, like, hey, you have to tell your doctor you're working with me. And they're okay with it, and they're monitoring everything as well. And it's safe. And then, yeah, I think that it is, in my experience in the last 7 years, it's what's worked every time someone fully commits to it.
And what's that look like for you? So is it sort of free reign on saturated fats, or are you having people eat more lean meats and focusing on plant fats, or what's the construction of the keto diet look like?
Yeah, so we always hear there's a dirty keto and a clean keto, right? Like, I absolutely do not recommend keto products, bars and shakes and fake foods. I want them eating chicken, turkey, good lean cuts of red meat, fish, olive oil, avocados, nuts, seeds. Like, I try to have it a whole foods keto diet. I don't really have any restrictions on red meat. I know there's opinions on that. I haven't seen it to be harmful, but it's not everybody's the same. If they eat red meat and it makes them sick to their stomach and gives them inflammation, don't eat red meat. It's not like it's not black and white. So we just really formulate a plan that works best for them.
How did you get from, conventional nurse education to keto, working with people with blood sugar problems with a keto style diet, or even just a personalized dietary approach. How, what was your journey there? Did you have a personal experience or what, kind of what opened that door for you and what led you down that path?
Yeah, now that you say that, it kind of reminded me, my dad, he was pre-diabetic, I think, when I first became a nurse practitioner, and he's not a overweight man. He's 6'4", and just really was kind of always a lean guy, and I was like, wow, like, this is strange. So I started diving into his diet, which is a lot of refined grains and potatoes, and he's a country boy. So I was like, you know what, Dad, I've been reading, I love to read, I love to listen to podcasts. Let's just do this. Let's go on a low-carb diet, keto. And he got his A1C below 5, and it was near 6, I believe. And he only did it for a couple months. He felt better, had better energy. He doesn't do that now all the time, but it's changed his way of eating for so long now that he's held his A1C of not being pre-diabetic at all. And then during practice, I just started taking patients who were, up to it, started implementing it, saw the results, and I just kept repeating it.
Very cool. So what would you say are some of the keys to successful outcomes in your patient population? Because I'm sure you've seen some who do really well and maybe some who don't do as well. So what are some of the things that the people who do really well, what do they have in common?
Yeah, they know it's a long game. It's not a sprint. They have to know that it's not something. Many people have reverse diabetes and become diabetic again, as you know, because they don't have an exit strategy. Anybody can do, a restrictive diet for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, but what's your plan going forward? And then they have to have some kind of strength training regimen, exercise, something. We have to formulate a plan that gives them that exit strategy once they're done with the program or once they're done seeing their doctor. What does the rest of their life look like? So my most successful patients and clients, they know that. They know it's not a quick fix. It's something they do the rest of their life. Some people are like, so can I ever eat carbs again? Yes, but you have to eat the right carbs. And hopefully we get your insulin levels down and your blood sugar down, that your body responds better to carbs going forward. So the most successful just really see it as a marathon and not a sprint or a crash diet.
Okay, yeah, that makes total sense. And I think that's a good lesson for people listening, is that this is not, there is no quick fix for blood sugar and metabolic health problems. Even if your blood sugar changes quickly, which sometimes it can do. I mean, people do sometimes lose weight quickly. They'll see blood sugar changes quickly, but that doesn't mean you're cured forever and it's just gone, right? I mean, this is something that we've got to lean into. It has to be a lifestyle change. And I think the people who embrace that up front, rather than, I have a lot of clients who I feel like even months in, they're fighting themselves constantly. And they'll even ask questions like, when am I going to be able to eat this again or that again? Or, it's sort of like, I don't want to call it wrong thinking, but it's the questions they're asking tell me that they haven't made that mental shift yet to
Absolutely.
sort of live a different way. And I think there's a danger in that, because if you don't do that, if you don't shift away from the things that contributed to the situation that you were in when you started, there's always a risk of sliding back to that. Do you see the same type of thing?
Yes. And even during the program, 6 months is a long time. I'll have clients doing well for a couple months and their blood sugars are technically non-diabetic, but their A1C is still elevated because it takes months and time to reverse this insulin resistance. So they get it low and they go back to eating how they were and they're like, well, what happened? I'm like, it's an education component. Like, they have to understand that this is something you have to do for life in order to keep it that way. And it shouldn't be as a restrictive mindset. It's just we shouldn't be eating these refined fake foods anyway. So it's a big learning curve and just a shift they have to take on mentally. And if they don't, then you're right, they're not going to be successful long term in managing their diabetes.
So when you have a new client, whether it's probably someone that comes in, I mean, probably somebody that you work with online. What does customizing a program look like for you? So what's the process there of figuring out with them what the best approach is going to be to help them regain control of their blood sugar or lose weight or whatever the goals are?
Yeah, so I have them track on my Pal for 2 weeks where I can get an idea of how much protein they're intaking a day, what the averages, the calories, the carbohydrates, the fats, the fiber, and I just look at it and then I start slowly saying, hey, let's change that oatmeal you had for breakfast. Let's switch it up for 2 eggs, right? Very slow integrations, because if I tell them you need 120 to 150 grams of protein each day, they're going to look at me like I'm crazy. So I just really start swapping things in and out of their diet, starting with breakfast. I stop them from snacking, right? As long as they're not at risk for low blood sugar, which most type 2 diabetics aren't unless they're on, sulfonylureas or insulin. But try to get them away from snacking first off, and then start replacing things in their diet slowly. And eventually, after months on in, we have a diet that they can adhere to because they've helped me create it along the way, if that makes sense.
And that's the diet. Are there other factors as well that you look at? Exercise, sleep, stress, other lifestyle factors that might come into play?
Yeah, so ultimately, I like them to walk after their largest meals, right? We know that there's a big glucose uptake if they do that. But I highly recommend strength training. I try to get them in a strength training program at least 3 times a week. So that might look like dumbbells at first. They've never lifted weights in their life. So I customize them workouts as well based on what they're able to, their activity level. So it might look, maybe they're not doing any kind of exercise. Let's just get up and walk 10 minutes a day. Let's walk after our meals. Then let's progress to, hey, let's pick up some dumbbells for, 10, 15 minutes a week. And we just slowly start. And excuse me, everybody is so different. Some people jump right in and they're ready to give, all they have to this. But a lot of people, they're not. They're scared and they question it. Like, why am I doing this? And I just try to remind them what they were doing isn't working. So let's try something else. We got to change. And then I like to call it a liver detox. I just really help them eliminate all these harmful ingredients in the sugar-free foods and all these Franken foods, as like we like to call them, out of their diet, so their liver can just breathe a little bit and process some things. I think that has a big impact on their health and blood sugar regulation is their liver health. So I try to get them to understand what that looks like and why it's important.
What are some of the biggest challenges that you think people have when it comes to being able to do a program that would allow them to, I don't know, gain control of their blood sugar? So, you could lay out maybe what they're supposed to eat or what looks, as close to an optimal diet for them. And they're walking after meals and getting and doing some strength training and some of the other things you mentioned. What do you think stops people from being able to either get rid of diabetes or at least get control of their blood sugar?
I think they rely a lot on motivation, and motivation's not always going to be there. They need to rely on a plan. They need to prep. Half of it is just prepping your meals, planning your workouts. What does your schedule look like this week? And I can help them with them. Like, hey, give me your schedule for the 7 days, your work, your routine, your kids' practices. I try to help them fit it in and show them, like, it is possible. You have to just sit back, think a little bit, and plan ahead. Because I know if I don't plan my meals out for the week, I'm going to go out to eat and make bad choices too. We're human. So really a lot of it is just the prep work and getting their mindset. Like, hey, Sunday you might need to take a couple hours and plan your week and make your food so it's easier to make good decisions throughout the week. So I help them do that as well and just kind of change their lifestyle in general.
Yeah, that's great. So are you having people doing like bulk shopping and then, making meals ahead of time as much as possible? Not everybody is going to do it the same way, of course, but, if possible, eating at home more often, for example, and then, maybe refrigerating meals and reheating them or something like that. What are some of the tips that you give people in that regard?
Yeah, so I get tired of eating the same thing every day like most people do. So we need to find a way that they can meal prep but still have options. So I say, hey, meal prep a bunch of ground beef, meal prep a bunch of chicken, some fish, put it in big containers with whatever side you're having, the veggies, or if they are eating some beans or quinoas or barley, millet, things like that. Have it ready. That way each day you can take it out. You can choose what you're eating for lunch and dinner. It's not already pre-made. You can just, it's meal prep, but you still have options to change it up or change the seasonings each week, have a different type of theme each week. So it's still the same foods you're eating to get the goal you want, but it doesn't have to feel so restrictive and regimen. Like every day I have my little lunch pail I take out. I'm eating the same thing. You're not going to sustain that. So I like to think of meal prep as just batch prepping a lot of different things, and then whatever you want to eat that day, just pull it out and make your little lunch and go.
Okay, cool. So you did your dissertation recently on blood sugar control in this population of patients that you work with. What are some of the things you learned, studying that group and then writing your dissertation? What are a few takeaways there that maybe were I don't know about revelations, but things that you came away with that maybe you weren't expecting, or things that you just learned through that process?
I learned it was really hard to motivate people when I don't have access to them every day. So as seeing patients in clinic, I would still see them once a month during this dissertation, my group of patients, checking their blood sugar. That was one of the requirements, eating a lower carb diet, exercising, doing things like that. But what was challenging was I could not communicate with them between. I'd try to call them, they wouldn't answer, keeping them on track. But that really wasn't a revelation. I knew that already in practice. So it was really a quality improvement project trying to bridge that gap of how we can make this process better. So I learned a lot of maybe trying to get all patients on CGMs because they were checking their blood sugars fasting. But that's because CGMs aren't covered in type 2 diabetics a lot of the times. So that's a challenge. And if they did have that, I think they would see in real time what the food was doing to them and be more compliant and want to do better because they just check it fasting in the morning. Okay, well, most of the time it's going to be better. What does it look like after your meals? So I wish I would have had that during the project, that they could have had better results.
You talked about motivation earlier. What are the main motivations of your patient population? Like, are they there because somebody told them to go? Are they worried about like losing a foot or going blind? Is it more about health optimization? What are some of the main motivating factors that you see in your patient base?
Well, in the clinic, it is usually mom or dad died of diabetes complications. They had chronic kidney disease, they had heart failure, they lost a foot. So that's usually patient-wise. On the client side, it's more of wanting to optimize their metabolic health. They're like, hey, I'm just tired of feeling this way. I'm tired of going through every day feeling tired and sluggish and pricking my finger every day and buying these medications. Like, this is just ridiculous. Like, they get to the point they're like, I need a change to change. So it's two different worlds, coaching versus seeing patients in practice is what I've seen.
Yeah, definitely. And I think bridging that gap is one of the mysteries in what I've been doing for many, many years, and probably what you're seeing too is, how do you, it seems like it's like 90+%. We were talking about this a little bit earlier, but it seems like 90+% are in their primary care physician offices. And many of them want, of course, to get rid of diabetes or to at least have their blood sugar under control or to take less medication, to lose weight, all those things that you would think that they would want. But they're not necessarily out trying to find answers. They're not on YouTube. They're not on Instagram looking for help from people like you and me when it comes to blood sugar control. So it's always a challenge of how do you help more people? How do you reach those people with that same message to lead them to better outcomes? Yeah. How about with medications? So, where do you feel like medications fit into the mix? Do you see, probably on the client side, I would imagine you have more people trying to do this more naturally, but how do you sort of weigh the idea of using medication to lower and control blood sugar versus, getting more to root cause issues?
Yeah, so I think medication is a tool, obviously, like many things like diet and exercise. And when you come in with an A1C of 13 and your kidneys are already showing signs of, failure, like we have to do medication, right? We have to get things settled. But you should go just as hard on nutrition and lifestyle in order to combat this at the same time. But so I'm not black and white on medication. I think they're needed. Obviously, I prescribe them every day, but my goal is always, what's our exit strategy? Do we want to live on these medications? Some medications worsen insulin resistance, as you know. So it's really just a Band-Aid to the root issue, which is insulin resistance. And I think there's still a lot of debate out there of what is insulin resistance? Why is it happening? So it's something that we're just keep evolving and learning and just do the best we can to help these patients. But to answer your question, I think medication is a tool. It shouldn't be the end all be all. And hopefully you want to get off of it if possible.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it can be really helpful, life-saving tool, obviously, in many cases. But I like the idea of having an exit strategy, if possible. What am I doing in the background, or what am I doing in addition to the medications that's going to help me, not only have good blood sugar control, but improve my metabolic health over time as well. So really good.
And some
really
people
good stuff.
don't want to. They take
Right.
insulin and they tell me, why do I need to diet? I just take more insulin. I'm sure you've heard that. And it's just, we're missing the boat on educating them of why that's not optimal. The damage is still being done behind the scenes just because your blood sugar is lowering. All the damage to your kidneys, your heart, your eyes is happening. So I just don't know what we can do as providers and clinicians and coaches to like really get that message through.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that's changed for me over time is, many years ago, I would try to sort of force my goals on my patients. And I realized that that's a losing battle and oftentimes leads to a lot of frustration. So I think it is important to meet people where they are. And you're right. Some people don't really care about getting rid of diabetes or don't really care about taking medication. Like, it's fine with them. They're just there because, like you said, they had a family member who lost a foot and they don't want to do that, or they don't want to have a heart attack, or, maybe they want to lose 20 pounds and, maybe they're 300 pounds and they want to get to 275 or something. And that's great. I think it's anybody who wants to work towards better health, better blood sugar control. I applaud that goal, even if it maybe wouldn't be my goal. You know what I mean? And I think being in a position to help people achieve those, and then yes, showing them that there is more. Offering the opportunity to go further if they want to is wonderful, and many people will take that when it's offered. So it's interesting, but fascinating, and it can be very rewarding when you're helping people get what they want as opposed to what you want, I think.
Yeah, I think when you first come out of school too, you're very gung-ho and you have your ideology and you're like, this is what works, and you learn really quick that doesn't work in all people. Like,
Yeah.
they don't trust you, for one. Who are you to tell them how to
Right.
live? So you're definitely right. And the coaching aspect, I've learned to meet people where they're at versus trying to tell them not to eat any carbs at all, and that's just not going to work. So we got to figure out, what carbs can you eat? What are we going to compromise on to, get you your goals?
I'm glad you learned quick. I learned slowly, but
I wouldn't
Learn
say it was
nevertheless.
quick.
So let's talk a little bit more about CGMs. You mentioned using CGMs with some of your clients. What are the biggest reasons to use a CGM, and what are some of the things you've learned, or what have your clients learned that they've shared with you from using CGMs?
Yeah, I wish that everybody could get at least a 3-month access to CGM at some point in their life and just really utilize it as a tool to figure out what foods are best for you, because what you can eat and what I can eat are totally different. Even if we're both non-diabetics, it doesn't matter. Like sweet potatoes, for say, spike me so high, and I'm not insulin resistant or diabetic. So I use it as a tool of, hey, when you're eating, let's not just pay attention to that blood sugar number. Okay, it's 150. I'm not just worried about that. How long did it take you to go from, say, 120 to 150 after you ate? Did it take 30 minutes? Did it take an hour? Did you spike 60, 70 points? I really try to teach them, like, it's not just about the number. It's about the curve of that line. It's about how they respond, the variability of their blood sugar, and also how fast they rose, like sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. The number, like they're spiking 60, 70 points after a meal. Hey, what can we do to lower that, make it more of a 20 or 30 or 40 point rise instead? How do we pair foods around that, like protein and fat, in order to stabilize their blood sugar?
Those are some really good points. There's a concept called area under the curve, which you've heard of, and some people may have heard of, but it's this idea that it's not just about how high the blood sugar goes, but how long it stays high, that oftentimes determines what your A1C is and what your exposure to risk is. So, when your blood sugar, let's say it goes up 70 points, but drops right back down 20 minutes later from eating like an apple. We don't love to see a huge spike like that, but I'd rather see that than it go up 50 points and stay high for 2 hours, because that's going to be a much bigger area there underneath that glycemic curve. And your exposure to that high blood sugar, your exposure to that risk is much bigger. And so we see more complications. We see more oxidative stress, greater risk of harm from that. So it's you can't do that with a glucometer, really. I mean, unless you're going to prick your finger every 30 minutes for an entire day, which most people aren't going to do. So so the CGM allows you to do that. And it's not just food, right? It's also different forms of exercise and stress, and maybe you had a poor night of sleep the night before, and you can kind of see how your blood sugar responded to that overnight and in the morning and that whole next day. So there's a lot you can learn, a ton you can learn. And I love that CGMs are now, available to people without diabetes. There's the new Dexcom has one, and Abbott has one that is now being marketed for non-diabetics. And, there is a cost. So, you do have to pay for it, but they're becoming more and more affordable. And if you can afford it, it's, probably the greatest tool that I think you can use when it comes to monitoring your metabolic health.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, this has been fantastic. So we'll wrap up here in just a minute, Katie, but any sort of last words, anything else that you want to share, secrets that you've learned, anything that, you want to convey to the people listening?
That it is possible. It is possible to lower your blood sugar, get off medications, reverse your type 2 diabetes, your insulin resistance. It's not going to happen overnight. And I think that's really something that we struggle with as a society now. We want instant gratification. We want to Amazon Prime this diabetes reversal, and it's just not, that's not how it works. So it's more of a long-term lifestyle change, and we need to really do better on educating our clients and patients like that so they see it as such and maybe don't lose so much motivation when they don't achieve it in 3 months like some people can.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. Sometimes patience is really key. We talk about, right action over time. So doing the right things, the things that you found to improve your blood sugar, to help support your metabolic health consistently over a long enough period of time so that your body can heal, and make those changes. We're not looking just to drop blood sugar. We're looking for a metabolic shift, to go from insulin resistance to insulin sensitivity, to go from poor metabolic flexibility to good metabolic flexibility so that we can burn fuel, store fuel easily and effortlessly, and, go from burning carbs to fats to, building muscle, all the way the body's designed to. And unfortunately with diabetes, it sort of throws a monkey wrench in all of that. So it takes time to retrain the body to be able to do all those things the way it's supposed to.
Absolutely.
Okay, awesome. Well, thanks so much for being on here with me. If people want to find out more about you, follow you on social media, or look into one of your programs, what's the best place for them to go?
Yeah, on Instagram at Dr. Kaity Castillo.
And could you spell that out for us?
Lowercase DrKaitykastillo.
Okay, perfect. We'll put it in the show notes as well for everybody who wants to check out Dr. Kaity. And again, I really appreciate you coming on with us and sharing all your knowledge that you've been able to accumulate through your experience over the years. Thanks again for being here.
I appreciate it.
All right, take it easy.